Um, welcome to my presentation for Ultimate Football. Ultimate Football is a sports genre football video game which will be marketed as an online multiplayer tournament game exclusively on XYZ Studios servers and its website. The game will be accessible from any console controls and therefore encourage play across different console users. Players can choose from a tactical advisory role in the game, leaving the game to bots who will manage the action while you manage the strategy, or you can take a single active player role, or you can take over a whole team, or play as a single player as part of a whole team of MMOs, including your friends. Players can choose their own clubs, their own players, and amongst the choices we're going to show you a unique selling point which we think will make this very, very different from any other game you've seen. Okay, the company's key requirements when we were meeting the brief was that XYZ wanted an international reach for growth into a variety of different markets around the world, and we felt that a football game was a good way to achieve this because it's about as international bar America as you can get. They also wanted cross-media functionality. They are setting up a website, and therefore it's clear that they want to take advantage of different media. So we felt that this sort of game could go next to, for instance, sports coverage, if XYZ were doing sports coverage. It could have a variety of potential spin-off products. It could have different season-on-season versions of this, in the same way that, for instance, FIFA do that game. They said they wanted us to target a specific target audience, and we've done that, which, while it's fairly niche, is also reasonably large. It's also a very young target audience, as you'll see, and we felt that that gave XYZ a good platform for growth in future years, because if we get the customers in young, and they're used to going to XYZ for their products, then hopefully we'll keep them for the rest of their lives. In terms of meeting the brief, the main ways that we did it were we created an innovative product which nevertheless builds on the success of other products. A lot of you are busy watching that at the moment, and after the initial pitch we'll be going, this is just FIFA. We hope to show you that this is different, better, and certainly more profitable than FIFA. The target audience is broad, it's youth-based. It'll hopefully attract the young people to XYZ channel, as we said, so they can see what's on offer. And in that way, we thought we would sell this product to you as something which brings new audiences to the channel. So whatever products are on XYZ, we will be bringing in an audience who will then be exposed to them, which could bring you greater profit in the long term for all of your products. At that point, that addresses the final and most important brief requirement, which was for commercial viability. And we'll break down the budgets in a second and show you how we did that. The game's been devised to appeal to XYZ Studios' young, aspirational male target audience. This is one of the many segments that they have, and we're doing it by providing real-time competitive gameplay against other players. The target audience will be predominantly male. It's likely to range from school children to uni students to working men, maybe 10 to 35. 35 it will start tailing off, we guess. They will be in single or understanding relationships, because these are the sorts of games that are what we might call a time suck, and if you don't have an understanding partner, then frankly you're not going to be able to spend much time on this. We're looking at class C1, C2 and D because of the reasonable amount of disposable income that they have, and also the amount of time that they're probably going to have. The other reason is that a lot of these people will also already be console users. Okay, so they will probably already have a console of their own. In terms of psychographics and demographics, these people are motivated by the need to prove themselves, especially men against men. It's a very competitive environment. Therefore, that makes them aspirers or possibly mainstreamers. They will be interested in gaming, sports games in particular. They may be sporty in real life. They may be football fans in real life. But to be honest, if they're not, it doesn't matter a whole lot. But we think that those types of people will be the main people who will like this product. And that's who we're going to be pitching out. These people also enjoy social situations, the idea of male bonding and being part of a group, and we hope to show through the gameplay that this is something we can meet. These are our desires that we can meet in the target audience. Can I stop at this point and ask if any of you have any questions? Okay, excellent. You're all bored as hell.
I'll ask a question.
Yeah.
Why isn't there an offline part to the game? Why is it just online?
Mostly because I will come to that as part of our distribution strategy. Do you mind waiting until then?
That's fine.
Okay. There is a good reason that we think, from XYZ's point of view, makes sense.
All right.
But it is a good question. Okay. The key needs that we hope to meet for in the target audience are for social contact and belonging. We think that the social media links, coming into what you were talking about, this is going to be heavily sort of marketed and played through social media links, and we think that the online competitions, etc., will bring people together, and that's why the online version we thought was preferable to an offline version. Again, more about that later. We're also meeting their needs for aspirational role models to imitate, in two senses. One, in the sense of the stars who are being played, but two, when you see the marketing campaign we've come up with, hopefully it will also give them something to aspire to in terms of the game players themselves. We thought it would also meet their needs for personal and social identity. Most of these people will be wannabe sports players or sports fans or gamers, in fact. And at some level we want to help these people to show them that they can aspire to be almost at a professional level through this game. We're meeting their needs for entertainment and escapism. A lot of the target audience are burdened with work and studies from which they need respite, from which they crave distraction, shall we say. And I'm sure that having spent most of Christmas working very hard, all of you will know exactly what I'm talking about. And finally, we're also meeting their needs for a competitive environment. We know that the male market is very competitive, it's very driven by micro or macro competition, and this in turn, the reason for this is because of the testosterone release, the pent-up emotions that it kind of channels into a non-aggressive form, and we think that's the reason that a lot of video games are played by boys, and therefore one of the things that we're providing for. The players can choose from, as I said before, a tactical advisory role in the game, so in other words you're the manager, which means that you leave the game to the bots themselves while you manage the strategy and the action, so you can go for tactics, defensive tactics, attacking tactics, etc. You can also be an active player, a single player, taking control of one particular player while bots control the rest. We've similarly got choices for taking charge of the whole team, or being a single player as part of an MMO team. So it's the sort of thing that online you could play with your friends if you know you're meeting up and you've got a game code. So they could all play different individual players more or less the same way as you do out in the playground when you go, I'm going to be, I was about to say Shearer, but I'm 20 years out of date. You know what I mean. The players can also choose their own clubs, their own players, and this allows customization and choice according to whether your skills are playing skills, tactical skills, or gameplay based, and also depending on what your aspirations are, if you want to be like a manager or if you want to be like a player. But we haven't revealed the USP yet. In terms of the gameplay itself, the format is, there are several different modes. You start with the training mode just to kind of familiarise yourself with it. In single or multiplayer modes we have available. Hopefully they will cater to the different players' ability levels and how much they're prepared to spend as well. So you'll see that the amount that they're prepared to spend, the amount of time that they're prepared to put into this will kind of dictate how far through these formats that they eventually go. Basically you start with the training and tutorial modes, as I said. They'll help you to learn the technicalities of it. But when we then graduate, we go on to one-off games, league games, cup competitions, and also mixed league and knockout competitions like the World Cup or like the Champions League. We've also, as one of our USPs, got a historical best of the best mode. Now, this is where you don't just choose your players from this season. This is one of the things that makes us very, very different from FIFA. You can pick a player from any country, any club, any era. And you can bring them all together to get Pelé playing with Johan Cruyff, playing with Alan Shearer, playing with Paul Ince, etc., etc. So that you've got your kind of dream team that you've always thought would be the best players, or the best English players, or the best Scottish players, and you can bring them together in a fantasy team of your own to take on other people's fantasy teams, and then we see how right you are. We've got a couple of concept documents there. I haven't put them all in, but it gives you an idea. The storyboard shows you the decision-making process. We've only put a few of the players in, and it's not exactly to size, but it shows you the decision-making process there of what happens when you're a player, so who you can kick to, how the players will swap. And we've also got a little walkthrough there, which, if you're interested in seeing, looks an awful lot like FIFA. Let's have a quick look.
Hey there, and today we're going to see all of the FIFA 17 gameplay so far. Let's get straight into it. Into the gameplay we go, and the first thing you notice, guys, is that the game itself looks a lot brighter in the way the colours are this year, especially graphically. It just looks a lot nicer than previous years, and for me last year in FIFA 16 it looked quite dull, and to see this more bright and fresh kind of effect they're going for looks cool. But in terms of the shooting, now the shooting for me last year was just not right, and the same could be said for passing. Passes, you tapped A and it would go 50 yards the other way. However, on the new FIFA, as you can see by these through balls and the crosses as well, the passing is so much better, and overall it was a massive overhaul that was needed for FIFA 17, and as you can see by this gameplay there, passes and through balls can now work, which is just the best thing for this game. Passing last year was...
Okay. Clearly, if this was stopping the presentation, if you presented something like that, then they'd be going, but this isn't our product. It's the nearest thing I had, and I didn't have the time to do the whole thing. But it's an example of a concept document that you might put out there. Okay. What you'll note, hopefully, back in the presentation mode, is the similarity in style with other football games on the market. We wanted the format to be entirely recognisable to our target audience, because a lot of them are very loyal players and they play FIFA a lot. So what we wanted was for a game that was very clearly like FIFA, so that they would feel comfortable, they would feel they knew how to play it, and that would not be a problem. What we're relying on is our marketing and our unique selling points to draw them away from FIFA. Now, this is a little bit of a risk, but hopefully we can convince you that we think we're in a good position to do this. So you can see that the gameplay, the graphics, the location settings, the different stadia, the looks of the players and the game controls are entirely familiar to the players of all consoles. Remember, whatever console you're on, you're using whatever console controls you're used to. These are deliberate ploys to appeal to this audience, and we'll also have, as part of the gameplay, the voices of referees, of commentators, etc., will be impersonated by John Culshaw, who is the world-famous impersonator, so we can get the voices just right. Oops. And this is the bit you don't know. Okay. Final slide about the game, and then if you've got any questions, I'll come to you. The unique selling points. We said we wanted our audiences to recognise this product, and I think that, can I ask for a quick hands up, how many of you don't recognise that type of game? Okay, so all of our audience we think will recognise it. At that point we need to make our unique selling points really, really clear. So the choice of gameplay modes and the different roles you can take, similar to FIFA, but again the different roles are slightly different. The online tournaments. Now FIFA were experimenting with this, am I right? Okay. The online tournaments are going to be deliberately set up in this form of informal and also official World Cups. So they're going to have World Cups like The online access via any console we think is something very, very new. One of the problems with FIFA is if you're on a PlayStation and somebody else is on an Xbox, you can't play each other. We think that going through the online version allows everybody, no matter what console they've got, to play together. So hopefully there shouldn't be any friends that you can't play with. It'll also attract a much wider range of people. One of the other unique selling points is the power-ups. Now, this is, as part of our marketing, we are not charging a great deal for this game when you compare it to £40, £50 for FIFA. But a lot of the money will come from microtransactions, and power-ups would be one of them. However, if you want to play in a tournament system, then you will have a handicap. It's not possible, in other words, to power yourself up and then play people who are complete rubbish and just hammer them. You will be linked to people, you will only be able to play people who are powered up to your same level. So ultimately, it's about skill on skill at that level. Okay? And finally, one of the best areas, I think, is the all-time legends functionality. The ability to bring, you know, Pele and Shearer together in your own dream team, I think, is something that a lot of people in our target audience discuss anyway. They always talk about who the best footballers of all time are, the best left wingers, etc., etc. And I think the ability to bring all of them together will help. Can I ask if you've got any questions about the actual product itself?
Do you not think you're restricting yourself by not doing offline as well? Because what happens if a couple of mates are together at someone's house and then they want to play each other there and then?
They can still go online via their consoles, can't they?
Mm-hmm. What happens if they want to play each other?
At the same house.
It's just done by a game code. So basically, you go in, player one will go online and will say, setting up a new game, this is the game code, and the person next to them will go, right, I'll put that in. It will be an exclusive, so you can stipulate how many people you would like to come on. So if you want to send out 6 invitations to your mates, you basically send it out with a game code, they click on the link, and they're the only ones who can come in. Or you can do, there will be the facility to do it as an open game, where you just send the code out onto the forums on XYZ Studio, and anyone can join in anytime they like. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think it was more getting at the fact that it's similar to split screen, as you have other games for the genres. If you're playing on FIFA, which is your competitor, you'd have someone sat next to you with a controller, both playing on the same console.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas it seems like you can't do that with this game. You have to have a separate console to invite another person on.
So, if we were to alter the game so that you could have a double controller from a single console, from a single ISP, would that solve that problem?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much for that feedback. It's really useful. Okay, moving on. As investors, you guys want to know how we're going to make money, and these are our main money streams. The initial access would be free for 3 months through online distribution, so that we overcome the cross-platform difficulties, which we've already talked about. And what we're trying to do is capture the attention of those who already play these games but are loyal to the current FIFA products. Making the product free or cheap, we hope, will in the first instance get their attention and hopefully get them to try the game at least. And we are then going to rely on the recognisability of the game and the unique selling points of the format to draw them away from their loyalty to FIFA. Okay. We're then looking at access for tournaments. So any online tournaments that are massive tournaments will need to pay an entry fee in the same way that you would for a football competition or something like that. And it would be very small fee, 99p or 49p or something like that. That has not been entirely thought through, but the process of paying to go into multi-player tournaments, official multiplayer tournaments, is what we're going for. Similarly, adverts and pop-ups will subsidise this one-off payment in order to keep it as low as possible, because we don't necessarily want people being put off by that price. So these, the sorts of companies that we're hoping will advertise with us are things like Nike, sportswear companies, the sorts of companies that would go for our male target audience, so leisure wear, etc., etc. Similarly, we're also going to encourage sponsorship from companies, especially for the big tournaments. Now, if I were to give you an example, let's say Cam here is going to be, turns out to be a really, really good player. He can then go on to these official tournaments, and he might have to pay, but actually he might have his entry paid for by a company who is sponsoring him, because he is likely to win. Because if he goes a long way in the tournament, then the company, in the same way that the professional footballers get, attention for the brands, the company gets attention from his performance. So hopefully, those companies sponsoring these tournaments will be another major revenue stream for us. We're also looking at in-play add-ons. We talked about the ability to power up, and again, they would be microtransactions, sort of 49p maximum. However, as we said, they would only be allowed to play in tournaments against people who are similarly powered up. Okay, so we're looking for skill on skill in the end. We're also going to sell merchandise as part of it, in the same way that we've got T-shirts, etc., etc. The one problem that we would have with that is that we would have to go through FIFA, proper FIFA, not the game FIFA, for licensing rights. That would be one of our major costs. In this way, we feel that the heavy initial costs of development, and we're estimating 9 to 12 months and about £30 million, could start to be repaid within 6 to 12 months. We're not under any illusion that the money is going to come back quickly. But what we are saying is that that amount of money can be recouped over the years as the games improve, as we get more and more people in. Okay, when we first pitched this, 3 months ago, we got a variety of feedback both from clients and from audiences. The product was very clear to the clients. They got it straight away. They were absolutely fine. And similarly, the target audience. The clients felt that it was commercially viable and that we were aiming at the right target audience. And when we did the research, the target audience basically agreed. They said it was exactly what they wanted. It fitted the client brief of creating one of the distinct multimedia channel. The target audience was clearly defined and met. And we also had used the idea of media theory to do that, because we were talking about use and gratifications, we were talking about demographics, psychographics, and behavioural profiling as well. They liked the fact that we thought about a range of monetization strategies which were going to be profitable. Despite the high development costs, we did say 30 million, and that's not to be sniffed at. And they liked the idea of clear and innovative, unique selling points. However, when we first started thinking about it, some of the feedback that we got in terms of weakness is exactly what you pointed out. Is it too similar to FIFA? That was the main one. Are the USPs enough to make loyal FIFA players switch? And how would users know where to find the competition website if we hadn't marketed it? So these were things that we had to basically do when we came away from that first pitch. We had to look at the audience loyalty factor, and we had to look at the marketing methods in order to ensure that we got it. So this is what we did. First thing was we did the market research about the uniqueness, and we've got audience findings which I'll share with you in a second. We then thought about different ways to attract the loyal FIFA fans through the functionality, through the USPs, and again I will go through that with you in a second. We devised a release strategy which was going to be based around Christmas or the next World Cup in 2018 in order to take advantage of key points in the commercial year or the build-up of football-themed hype that's already kind of being created with the World Cup. In the end, and I'd like to ask you your opinion about that, we think that the best time to start marketing this will be within a month or two of the next World Cup in 2018, rather than getting it lost in the kind of Christmas, everyone is advertising everything. I'd like to know your opinions about that. If you were in our shoes, do you think Christmas would be a better time to release it, or the World Cup?
So it's a qualifying campaign, really.
Start of the World Cup.
Early World Cup. Yeah.
So you go on World Cup, you go start the qualifying campaign.
Yeah, because if you release it just before the World Cup, you're going to be so embroiled in that, they're going to be playing FIFA all the time. Because FIFA, EA often do special World Cup tournaments in their game, like in Ultimate Team and online tournaments there. And they often bring out a World Cup game as well, a separate game from FIFA, like FIFA World Cup. So they could be going on that as well. So I'd say start the qualifying campaign, really. That's just me.
Isn't that 2 years before the World Cup?
Yeah. What about if we were to do something, for instance, where we did it as soon as the qualifying had finished?
So you knew the teams that.
So we know the teams who were in there, and then started to kind of build towards the excitement of the actual World Cup finals themselves before EA have got in there, but also kind of. I want to show you a marketing idea we've got that's very underground and will take a little while to build. Does that sound like it's possible?
Makes sense.
Okay. Can I ask for your general feedback? World Cup or Christmas?
Nothing the same as what I said.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. The female's not answering at all. We didn't have many females who gave us positive response, but we decided to go for a PEGI 7 rating. The main difference between PEGI 7 and PEGI 12 is bad language, and it was one of the key sort of ethical constraints that we came across. Now, FIFA themselves are putting in new rules about unsportsmanlike conduct, and red cards for swearing and that sort of thing, or they're discussing bringing it in. We thought we would kind of support that, and we thought that one of the reasons that would work is I think if you do a game where you're not allowed to swear, people who are playing it aren't really that bothered. But the people who are buying it, and that could be parents, may actually see that as a plus. So we felt that that might be another way of getting a more adult audience in who are willing to buy it for their children.
Why 7 and not 3?
Because unfortunately it's classed as mild violence if you're tackling people and you miss tackle them. We did have a look at that, but it's
FIFA 3.
Yeah, FIFA
Sorry?
PEGI 3.
FIFA PEGI 3 though.
ooh, in that case my research may be wrong. I had FIFA as 7.
And the swearing part of FIFA, if you have a microphone in or a connected speaker on it, which is 360 or Xbox One, you are, and it's turned on while playing career mode, it does pick that up, or it just picks up Miles shouting.
You can get fired
and you can get sacked in the career mode. So I think it's kind of very similar to FIFA.
Okay. I hadn't realised that, hadn't done my research properly apparently. I think in that case it would be one of those genre conventions that we would like to replicate, so it won't be as one of our unique selling points. But perhaps by marketing it that way, maybe if we try, so you're saying if we try and get it down to a PEGI 3, then it's more likely to play better with the kind of parent audiences?
Yeah, I think if it was a PEGI 7 and they looked at FIFA and saw that as a 3, they would ask the question of why is this a 7.5?
Okay. Can I flip that around? Do you think that by having it as a 7, people of your age would be more inclined to
That's
have
what I
it?
was thinking.
If it's more violent, then I think more people will go for it.
Yeah.
So,
It's more realistic, isn't it?
yeah, so maybe make it genuinely a little bit more violent? Thank you very much, that's a really good idea. Okay. We also undertook research into the budget, which I'll break down for you later in the personnel and costs. We thought more about devising marketing strategies which would help us to distinguish the product from our competitors, and hopefully you'll like what we've got. And finally we looked at distribution strategies to fit their brief agenda, hence why we decided to go for online rather than delivering it through consoles. Did you have a question, Jack?
Along with the PEGI rating and getting rid of bad language,
There's it'd be quite difficult because the game is only online. Would the game have chat features with other players, for example, as removing bad language from the game would be quite difficult?
It wouldn't be a matter of removing it, it would be a matter of penalising it. So if, we will have algorithms that are looking out for certain types of language, and if it is said, or if it is communicated in the chat, then it would go for yellow and red cards. So people actually have to abide by the rules. Does that make sense?
That, would anything being said over chat be be responsible? Would XYZ be responsible for any of what people say? Because it doesn't. I don't think they are. I don't think
No.
Microsoft is responsible.
No,
for anything that goes
and
on.
I think we would have to have a disclaimer that made that clear at the start. It's a good idea. I'll take that down. Okay, these are the key changes. Sorry, I'll come on to them in a second. I knew there were some questions for you. You've all read the brief. Do you think there are any areas of the brief that we haven't read?
Is it the military value or whatever it is? You haven't said how much you want to make out of it.
Okay, I will come to that in a second. But we've addressed the idea of it's got to be commercially
Yeah.
viable. Okay, that's fine.
We haven't discussed the budget. How much is it going to cost?
Okay, we are going to come on to that. Can I ask you what you think of the product? I'm going to probably come to you guys because you were my target audience. By the way, coming out of pitch mode at the moment, I've realised that having decided to do this, I'm pitching it to basically classic gamers almost, with very, very few exceptions. On the technicalities of it, I'm not as well researched as I should have done, so you can see one of the things there. And that's the point of putting you in front of experts. I've put myself in front of you as experts in this field because you've already highlighted some of the things that are not right. And it's when you're pitching, it's kind of, oh shit, I didn't think of that. What did you guys think of the product itself?
I liked it, but I'm just not sure about the offline mode because a lot of time that's the only thing I really do, just play with my friends when they're around.
Okay.
Sometimes you like playing by yourself, against the computer, just trying to practice.
You can still do that. You just go in via the website.
Okay.
That's all. So you can play single player mode, but you're going in via the website rather than sort of through.
So you need Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I was about to say you have to have Wi-Fi then.
Yes, you do.
So that's
But offline, you still need to.
We need to do some research on that, but my belief is that we are approximately 97% covered for broadband in this country. So I don't think it'll be a major obstacle, and I think that the people who aren't covered will either not want to be covered because they're of a generation sort of post 70, 80 who are not necessarily connected, or they are probably too poor to be bothered about this sort of thing. Does that make sense?
yeah.
Any other comments about the product?
It probably would be best. Well, it would be best to add a completely offline feature. Say, when I'm playing FIFA and I don't have an online membership, I may have Wi-Fi, but I cannot get online. I'll play career mode, which I can play without Wi-Fi. I could play just with a TV, which is going to be a setback if FIFA are doing better in that sense.
I see where you're going. So, if we were to develop sort of what we might call cached adverts, see, the reason for going online is twofold. Number one, so that they go through XYZ channel and they see everything else that XYZ do. And go, oh, that's good. But the second one is that's where the adverts will be. Now, if we had a system of cached adverts where every time you are online it downloads adverts, so even if you play offline, it's still going to come up with a couple of adverts, would that get around that?
How about a pre-ordered version where you get a code to remove adverts? Or offline?
An annual
Yeah.
subscription?
Possibly.
You'd have to pay that little bit extra.
Just to get rid of adverts, so you
Okay.
can play offline without adverts without being tested with them, or maybe a a lot less adverts are being shown.
Okay. I think if you were willing to pay an online a subscription, an annual subscription, then we could take all of the adverts off. Apart from during tournaments, we want tournaments to be advertised, partly because it gives people breaks if they're in real time, and also because we think we will have a lot of, probably about half of the budget may well come from commercial companies wanting to sponsor or advertise during the games. So we need it in the tournaments. Yes.
In terms of getting target audience involved, are you going to get the rights for teams, players, and leagues, like their names and likenesses?
Yes.
Because
We would that would be the most expensive part, but yes, we do intend to do that.
and the National Football Team Association, are you going to get rights for them as well?
Yes, although they're actually cheaper from the research that we've done. Individual clubs seem far greedier in giving their licenses out than anybody else.
How is that each player point? Is it like a point-based system distinguishing them from? So, like, if I play the game, how am I distinguished to other players? Like, if I'm higher than them, like ranking.
Yeah, that's actually going to be done by. You're asking me technical questions. No. The way I would envisage this being done is through a level of entry. So, in other words, when you sign on to the game and you go into whatever mode it is that you're in, you won't be able to see the other layers of people who are above you or below you in terms of power-ups. So you will automatically go in, and anybody who is on that level, if you think of it like a mine shaft, you're only playing the people in the same mine shaft as you. That make sense?
Surely then, though, you could be paying for power-ups and be in the lowest of your bracket, so you'd be paying to be worse off.
Yes, theoretically you could, but then the incentive is always to kind of get to the top of your bracket. It depends whether. I think the idea of power-ups is very often to use them as something that compensates for something that you as a player are not good at. So if you're not particularly good at speed, if you're not particularly fast on the buttons, then you could get a speed power-up that would help you with that. But you're still going to be playing against people who are blooming fast.
What's the point in a power up if you buy it and then you come up against the people who are the same level as you with the same power up? Doesn't that just make the game the same as it would be?
Yes, but it makes it skill on skill. My feeling is that if you think of it like a golf handicap, people like to kind of be given a nudge into a sport and sort of go, oh, you're doing all right, because you've got a little bit of a hand. But actually, what you would do is get rid of the power-ups as you go through.
Right.
So you could switch a power-up on or off, depending on how you're feeling, to see whether you're actually any better without or with it.
Right.
And that means that you could access the higher leagues. So eventually, what you'd be wanting to do is get to the highest leagues without any power-ups whatsoever. And then you kind of know who the best of the best players were.
How about, so the concept of power-ups is to, if you're not very good at something, using the controls, or you struggle with using a certain mechanic of the game, is the power-ups is to compensate for that and help you through it.
Yeah.
How about using no need for power-ups to keep it nice and simple, less complicated, and just change the controls so that people can alter that rather than having to, as much as you can get money out of people buying power-ups, but a lot.
So customizability of controls.
Yeah, would abolish the need for them.
It would, however, we're getting money from them, and we don't want to abolish them. So perhaps what we do is pitch it as a more convenient way. So it can be completely manually configured, but excuse me, if you want to do it for yourself, that's absolutely fine. But if you want to just sort of cheat and get on a little bit and see what it's like further up the leagues, then do it through power-ups. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, let me carry on with the questions. Do you think we've chosen the right target audience? you guys were, in fact, there are a lot of you in here who I would class as my target audience. Are we on the right sort of lines here? Do you think we're aiming at the right people?
Yeah. But you know how you said you would buy power-ups? Some people might not have debit cards and stuff, so how are they going to buy it?
I think you're right. We would do that on the initial registration process. So if you register once, for example, for an annual subscription or whatever, then those card details are stored, encrypted, and you just keep sort of going to them. We kind of like the idea of iTunes. We don't want people to necessarily be noticing that they're giving 49p away at a time.
Yeah.
So that could be done as a one-off by parents, or you just don't use it.
How are you
They're
going
grilling
to,
me here.
How are you going to
She was looking really sympathetic for those of you passage.
how are you going to combat the fact that young players in the target audience who don't understand the value of money, who have a saved credit card and have access to it at all times, and how are you going to combat the fact that they could just go ahead and, although they're spending money and giving the company as much money as they want, it will give the company a bad name if they're
So this would be an ethical constraint.
If your child was playing this game and your bank account was attached to this thing, and then you look and there's £300 gone without the child even realising.
Okay, I really like that. What if we institute a system of registration where during the registration process we're asking for age? Now I know you can lie about age, but if there's no need to lie about age, it doesn't get you any advantage or disadvantage or anything like that, and it doesn't mean you can't play it. But as soon as they come in, they register and you say they're 7. If they're under a certain age, then maybe have an upper limit on the amount of credit. And at that point, if they, let's say they reach £5–10 in microtransactions in a month or whatever, it automatically alerts the card holder. Would that solve that problem?
That would be a solution.
Okay, thank you.
Your target audience said 10 to 35-year-olds.
Yeah.
If you go in at Peggy 7, would you not just go for 7 to 35-year-olds to try and attract the whole audience?
It's an excellent point. Thank you very much for pointing out my inadequacy. If anyone was going to point it out, I trusted it to be you two. Do you think what we're offering them is something that they will pay for?
Initially.
You said it's cheaper.
It's a pay-to-win system.
Well, we're kind of trying not to make it a pay. You can pay to kind of shortcut, but actually, ultimately, you're not paying to win.
You're paying to do better, but the whole USP of it is you can play with anyone on any platform, you can play with your friends wherever.
Yeah.
Say one person has spent a lot of money on power-ups and they're at a skill level above one of their friends, they go to play them. How is that going to work?
Via personal invitations. So we were saying about setting up a game with a game code and giving it personal invitations. So the restriction by ability level only works when you go into general kind of, free play, as it were. If you're setting up a closed game, then you can invite whoever you wish, and it's up to them whether they choose to agree or not.
But when if you say I want to play Alfie and he hasn't got the power that I've got,
Yeah.
if he's going to ruin his experience.
Well, yeah, you're going to kick his ass, but hopefully he's going to do something about it and actually, improve it. Get on with it, Alfie. Do a bit of practice, right? And then one day you can come back and take him on and kick his ass. Excellent.
Could you make a system, maybe, whereas after so many games played or won, you'd gain a power-up, so it invite people to play more and continue playing it. So they'd gain, say, 1 power-up after 10 games played.
Can I ask how many of you think that's a good idea?
That's more motive to play. So if you think, like, if you normally have to pay for it, you get
We
something
do that
for
in a
free.
separate game mode, I'd say.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I like that idea. Or for the people who are later on sort of getting really good and don't want the power-ups, it gives them access to other leagues.
Yeah.
Is that fair? Sorry. That's one of my people for Friday. Yes, I'm alright for 3:15. Thank you very much. Right, I'm going to try and get through this because I do want to give you guys some time to kind of organise yourselves. These were the main questions that we thought we would get from about the product. The PEGI one I won't bother doing. The regulatory one you've brought up already. Give me a sec. We'll just do the costs one. So we looked at the total development costs of £30 million. Okay, we reckon 60% of that cost will go on marketing, and 40% of the cost will go on development themselves. We've then got a kind of contingency budget of about 10% in order to test the game to death. Because the problem is, if we put it out there and it's online and it's got bugs in it, we think straight away people will just go, it's rubbish. And the word will get out it's rubbish. So we need to test it so it's absolutely fearless. In terms of typical costs, we've got production and development costs, so developer salaries, voice acting, the impressionists, the music, orchestra music, which can be as high as $500,000, and we've got licensing from FIFA for copyright. We've got marketing and promotions, TV adverts, print adverts in magazines, and online adverts. And we're also going to have events and launch parties, which is kind of the cheapest way to go. Hopefully you'll see when I show you our marketing campaign the sort of thing that we're going for. We've also then got the manufacturing and distribution costs, which will cover, well, we had 4 options here. One was to market this as an arcade game, which is extremely expensive and doesn't get that much money back. The second was a console cartridge production, which again is fairly expensive. But the last one was the online distribution. And part of the reason that we went for that is because it's actually one of the cheapest forms of distribution for us. It cuts a lot of our production costs down, as well as bringing it into XYZ Studios, as we said earlier. PEGI rating I've talked about. Let's forget that. We had some potential questions from the audience. You guys have actually asked far better questions. But in terms of the audience research we've done, we sent out questionnaires to 100 people, randomly selected to represent a cross-section of the population. We asked them about their interests, their lifestyle, and this told us basically what you guys have told us, which is our target audience is spot on. It's pretty much males from a certain age, although from age 7 on 10 apparently.
We could go PEGI 12 and just go whole hog and just make it as violent as you can.
Nah, let's not. What we then did was we took a focus group of 20 people from the target audience, including these 3 guys. We presented the initial pitch of the game to see what they thought of its strengths and weaknesses, and this raised a lot of the positive points that we talked about before, but it also raised the idea of the lack of distinctiveness from FIFA, and that was why we decided to distribute it differently, to give it different unique selling points, etc., etc. It also got us onto the idea of the loyalty factor, and we thought that the best way to attract them was by having it very, very cheap or free at the start, and making it much more accessible across all consoles so that people could play each other. We thought that would be something that gamers would kind of leave FIFA for if they thought, actually, I can play it against anybody. Wanted to give you an idea of process as well. So in terms of the key processes, we thought about starting this much. Okay, so we will take a couple of months to do conceptualization. That would take us to May 2017. That would be the ideas, the design concept, the concept art, and working out everything that we've got. We also had the artwork that would take 3 months or so, be finished by August 17. Then we've got the coding. That's going to be the most difficult bit. 5 months in there to do that, and I think that's possibly an underestimate. And then the distribution and the marketing, which will be sort of for 4 months or so before the World Cup. That was before we discussed that idea about when to start it. Distribution we've talked about online. In terms of marketing, this is our idea for the marketing. So it's the idea, Ultimate Football, the great game in the hands of the most dangerous players. How many of you have seen the Nike Secret Tournament campaign? It was done before the World Cup of 2000, maybe 2004, and it was a very, very simple sort of concept. We want to do almost exactly the same in conjunction with Nike about this tournament, about our games tournament, rather than the real thing. So what we were going to do was, let's say, as Harry sort of suggested, we would have a group, when the World Cup qualifiers had finished and we're just about to get in, what we would do at that stage is send out personal invitations to, let's say, the 300, 400 best gamers in the world. And we're talking about the best football gamers. How would we know that? Well, we've already seen it on FIFA, but we would also be inviting another 400 people, the kind of YouTubers who comment most on FIFA games. Now, our reason for doing that is A, to get them into the game before anybody else, and get them talking about it on YouTube. So we want them to be sort of our market leaders, as it were. And if we can give them a really, really good experience, then hopefully that tournament builds up as we're getting towards the World Cup. Within the last month, you're down to the kind of last 32 playing each other, and at that point we'd start televising those games on the XYZ channel. We'd allow them to share it on YouTube, and you can get a feel for these people will be talking about the game for us. And hopefully, if they like it, if they persevered that far, then they will be, you know, our kind of opinion leaders, if you like. The actual teaser poster itself is this one there. It's just the scorpion, and the idea of a scorpion is. Say again.
Like dangerous, like that.
Oh, close.
Scorpion kick.
Right. It's one strike, one bite, and you're dead. So we would want to do that as an initial teaser poster, so people aren't sure what's going on, but then translate it to that so that people can start to make the link between that and the football game. Some people we think will recognise it. This is just to kind of give you an idea. This will be the campaign that we will then, having used all of these people to play a tournament, we're then going to film it and put it into something like this, which is the original campaign, which if you haven't seen it, you should. It's very enjoyable. Or not.
Oh, that's great.
It's Priyash taking the piss out of me already.
Hidden from the world, 24 elite players hold a secret tournament with 8 teams and only one rule. The last goal wins.
So you see, what we want to do is recreate that campaign with the gamers. So they're playing inside a ship. And we've got this idea of filming all of their best bits, so you can see all these different players. Same sort of players as those, but you know, the Pelés, etc., etc. But on a TV advert that gradually sort of shows what these people have been doing over the months previously, and enables them to kind of get a real feel for the game through the best players in the world. There. I'm hoping I'm nearly done because I'm losing my voice. There you go, that's the mark criteria. Right. Actually, no, keep that going just for a minute. So, what I want you to do now is, actually, because we've been taking questions all along, some of you guys who had to ask me questions may not have that many questions, okay? But I'm going to give you 2 or 3 minutes now in your groups to consult about what you're doing, and what questions you've got to ask me, and what answers you've come up for me about the presentation itself, okay? We'll get this done fairly quick and then give you some time. Go.
Whenever you're playing games, no play and you go from, so for example, you just set yourself as a manager, is there the option to change so you actually go to play the game?
Well, like halfway through.
Yeah. Or like at any point in the game.
Is that a question to say?
Well, a player manager. Yeah, like can you swap?
So how does the question you on how you deliver?
No, what I'm going to ask you questions about how I deliver.
What's your ladies?
Ryan, did you work in that?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I saw you. Yeah. Really just just standing there doing nothing.
How are you working with TK Maxx?
Right, guys, if you
You at TK Maxx?
No, one time.
those are the
How many matches on 4 or 5?
Oh, my time there was about
notes to
TK
the
Maxx.
presentation.
4 or 5 from our year.
Oh, you no, I reckon 7 or 8.
The reason I'm asking,
I thought it was that
because I know
TK Maxx. Yeah, I saw Harry.
you guys
You got Jay Jury, you got Ollie, he used to come to Eddie Bronx. Got
Oh no, he's not coming. He's
Come up, man. He was just out the way, you know, the coast there. So pretty. That work.
Don't land in the working environment.
Gents, what did you want to ask me?
my questions were answered by you.
I hadn't intended to do that initially, but I think I've got.
So, you know when you're playing the game, say for example if you set yourself as a manager,
Yeah.
is there the opportunity to change midway if you want to like change and player manager player?
Yeah, very.
It's actually the real.
Or would that be like another power up which you'd have to pay for?
No, I don't think that should be a power up, but I hadn't honestly thought about it. My feeling is that probably what you end up doing is doing the managerial tactics beforehand and at half time, and then you should be able to play it, or not play it, depending on whether you're letting the bots do it, and then you can go back at half time and sort of reorient. Does that make sense? So you should be able to do both if you want to, but some people won't want to. I used to play Football Manager, and I was definitely a manager, not a player. Is that, what did you think of the product?
It's good. But it's one of them things that's offline.
Yeah, yeah. That's right. Thank you very much.
So you might forget for a week.
I was funny, mate.
So,
It is.
That was quite long.
Only on
The
I
actual presentation
was
was
going to look at my mind,
I'm
didn't
going to give you
they?
30
It is only paying 20 quid a day.
so that
So I
if
was like,
you
no.
want to do questions,
How many hours were you going to
that's absolutely
No, full day.
Too many.
He said 20 quid. I was like, no, I'll have it for free. I was like, no, I want 40 quid. So I'm clearing 21 at somewhere.
merit criteria, identify potential client questions, and amend the picture proposal documentation. So I had a bunch of those questions there, which were what I was anticipating you guys asking. Merit 3 is showing understanding of feedback. So when I was asking you guys questions, getting feedback from you, and discussing what you might be able to do, that would be merit. And distinction.
How much money do you reckon you've saved up
discuss the
altogether?
client considerations for the creation
Yeah.
from pitch. So basically, that was the bit where I am taking on board certain ideas, floating certain ideas. I would then have
You're saying that for a car, right?
to go back to my finalised documentation and change it.
400.
Yeah.
Whatever you present.
Shouldn't have, that's too much money.
No, that's cheap because again, for like £2 now, 400 on the £20 a month on my phone. This is my living cost. So
You don't spend anything on
So
like
they like
clothes.
see what you were gonna.
No, not
So
necessarily.
just whatever
Don't
phone
worry,
is,
don't worry about
like
it.
phone or whatever.
But
Comes out mine.
Jack's done this. He's got a document of potential questions and his answers to them. So he's ready for them just in case. But what he's showing the examiner is
4 to 8.
Literally no one.
almost to the
Like
extent
one
that I think
Christmas,
he
half
left
hour.
one or two things out deliberately
So
in order
it
to
may-
have questions.
Yeah.
Speed up.
Right, folks. Let's do
Wait
this
to close.
very, very quickly. At this point, you're going to need to make some notes because the notes are more about the presentation, the delivery, the style, what to include, what to exclude. As I said to you, I'm conscious that that is not
Yeah.
pitch perfect by a long, long way. Can I ask you guys who are on the marking, how would you mark that?
You give it a distinction.
You gave that a distinction. Why?
But there wasn't documentation to support the bit like paper
Okay.
and stuff.
Now, remember what I said right at the start of the year. If you haven't got all of these, you can't pass. If you haven't got, if you've passed all of those but you haven't got all of these, it's not a merit. It's only then that you get to distinction. So I might have covered the distinction criteria, but if I've missed one there, I haven't got it. Okay? And that's really important. Now, this is for the whole thing. So remember that you guys have already done an initial pitch and you've already had some other documentation as well. So, have you explained different ideas for an original media product based on, so you guys presented 6. If you've done all 6, you should have met that one. Did you create a proposal and client documentation to support the pitch? Well, this is your proposal. Documentation, I haven't got any, except I did. What were my 2 elements of documentation there?
Storyboard.
Right, the storyboard and the gameplay and the marketing examples. You see, all of those would be documentation that you don't have to put in. If anyone asks you, all right, how would you market that?
Got it.
Yeah.
Is that alright?
Yeah, that's absolutely
You
fine.
don't just print it for them or anything.
Personally, I would say it'd be better if you did, because it makes you look organised.
So like
Yeah,
print that out. And then,
yeah, yeah, I think so. You'll need a maximum of 2 copies. So you should all have done that. Create a pitch. I've done that. Pitch the ideas. I've just done that. Discuss strengths and weaknesses of the different ideas in one. Well, you guys should already have done that. I've encouraged you. There are still some of you who haven't written those strengths and weaknesses in. Some of you have written them into the document. Some of you have written it as a separate document. I don't mind. Either of those is fine, but you must have discussed them. Identify potential client questions. Jack did this very, very well. You've got a separate document, haven't you? Yeah. That's just client questions. And he's got a whole load, and he's got a whole load of answers to them. Now, if you're clients don't ask you those questions, don't feel you have to answer them. You just give that in with the documentation at the end. Does that make sense? But I think they will. I mean, in your case, all the questions that I thought you would ask weren't the ones you asked. And you actually asked a lot of product-based questions. And they were really good questions. Now, this is where these come in, okay? Did I show an understanding of the feedback that you were giving me?
Yeah.
How did I do that?
You like switched it. Like you flipped it saying, if I did that, then how would it make it learn?
Right. Or you use rhetorical questions like, if I've understood you correctly, do you mean this? So basically, if you're rephrasing it, then they can say, oh yeah, you've understood that, that's fine. Was I able to respond to the questions? That's one of the worst things. You can see why people break themselves on Dragon's Den, because they don't know what the hell you're going to be asked. And they just be, oh my God, what am I going to say? You've got to kind of be thinking fairly freely in order to be able to do that. But did anything I answered come across as bullshit?
97%.
97%?
When you said the
online
broadband, it's 93%. Yeah.
Is it 93? Oh, I'm sorry, I genuinely thought that was right. But I did.
I only know that because I did it in IT last lesson. So.
I delivered it very convincingly, though, didn't I? I think the reason it didn't was because there were certain bits, technical bits, that you were asking me about that I freely said, I haven't thought about that. And sometimes it's better to say, I haven't thought about it, you know, what would you recommend? And get the feedback off them rather than sort of trying to horseshit your way out of it, because frankly that's difficult. By the way, was that on all the time?
No, just an
I was going to say that weren't recording.
It's still recording.
Discuss the client considerations for the creation of the product from the pitch. Did I talk about what the client wanted and why I thought this would be a really good idea? It's pretty much at the heart of it. So that should, as long as I've met everything, be a distinction. Okay? But all of those other documents I've said about, legal and ethical, well, I could have just skipped those because I didn't need to present them. But as soon as you said about, well, hold on a second, what about if people are, you know, amassing massive charges or whatever? What are you going to do about that? I needed to have done that and to have thought about it. Right? So you reckon that would get a distinction?
Yeah.
I don't think that would get a distinction. I think if I added all of the documentation I've done up until then, it would.
Right. Would you have handed out? Because I've done like loads of writing for separate parts of that. You've just skimmed over stuff and then you've explained it there. Can I give for my viability study where I've got all the legal stuff and I've got how can it's all the writing stuff?
Can I show you my?
Can I just give that to?
No. I'll show you the trick. In my notes, that's what I was reading from.
So you can see that, but they can't.
Yeah. And part of the problem, you guys tell me about the presentation. How did it come across?
You're constantly staring at your laptop.
No eye contact. You seem really nervous. You kept shuffling in and playing with your hands.
I'm also in a fucking dramatic amount of pain.
Okay.
At the minute. So I'm trying to sort of walk, just to walk it off.
Good stuff.
And any
You were asking for good shit, not bad stuff.
No. That's exactly what I want them to be able to say, because you've got to be aware of how it comes across. I think personally, for someone who is reading all the time, the information came across well and convincingly, but they're absolutely right. I'm not doing the eye contact. So when you see this on Dragon's Den, they know their bloody pitch, don't they? And really, they should be using that just as a kind of, I've forgotten a bit, okay. And if they know it, and they have forgotten a bit, and someone goes, well, what about the budget? It should be up there, and you just go, oh yeah, I forgot about that bit, yeah. Do you see? But yeah, the not making eye contact is critical, isn't it? And the fidgeting, and the... So I tried to do that, and then I realised that